Hello again, welcome to PaintersBlock. I'm your host, Anthony Ryden, and today we will be covering the Armored Mega Gargant and all his green stuff. We're going to make some tubing, a little bit of, kind of like rope, and his tattered cape, his tattered leathered remains of something he killed. So here's our model so far and what we got going. I did take away his remote control for his cannon, the little blades, and I put it on his ship part of his arm guard. And now we're going to grab our stuff. We're going to grab the green stuff. I'm going to put a link down below for you to get anything you need. But this is always split in half with a yellow and a blue side. And then we're going to grab our sculpting tools. I get both of them from the same company, so I'll put the links in the description below. But here we go. Here's the first sculpting tool, and as you can see, it's kind of like almost like a dentist tool, and it's got like a little scoop right here with a little bit of a rounded edge, and this makes things a little bit easier to soften and smooth out. And then here we have some ridges, which is really nice just to make some details, but I actually didn't quite figure out how to get that done. And then just a spade. Usually they all have some form of a size spade, and then another scoop. Just a different size and a different way to smooth things out, a smaller spade that's a little bit narrower, and then this one has a really large spatula, probably for really good like flattening, and it has one side that's rounded and one side that's flat, and then it also has a spade on another side as well. And there we go, that's the last sculpting tool out of that pack. There's probably more advanced ones, but that's probably good for what we're doing. We're not going to do anything too crazy. And then we're going to grab our razor blade, whichever one you have. This one's nice because it has a lock, so it has like a safety lock just in case you have kids around. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this green stuff and I'm just going to cut off a small section to start working with. And we're just going to start working on some tubing. So just grab your razor, whatever you got to cut that. It's a lot easier to have something sharp to cut it instead of just tearing it off, because you want to have even amounts for a easier time sculpting, but more of like a basic time sculpting. And this is how you kind of mix it together. Now the yellow side is the actual putty that is sculptable, and then the blue stuff is the hardening agent, so you need to put a half and half. And if you like this, please leave a like, follow us here on YouTube, Reddit, Instagram, Facebook, and make sure to hit that notification bell. We're going to be finishing this project up pretty soon. So here you're just going to be squeezing this around, turning it, twisting it, just try to get it green. Basically the yellow and the blue will turn it to green stuff, and that's how you know when it's ready. And you'll have a little bit of time in between. It'll take quite a while, especially depending on how big of a piece you're working with. The Gargant's large cape took about a day and a half to fully dry, so you have quite a while. Now here, I'm just trying to figure out what to do with this. This is my first time using this in 13 years, so I was rolling around and kind of noticed it was just getting caught, stuck on whatever else I had previously. Didn't really enjoy that, so here I grabbed some of my baking paper, what I use for my wet palettes in general, just a non-stick paper, and then I started using this to flatten it out and make it tubular. And it works a lot better because then it's a clean surface that isn't sticking to our green stuff, because it really likes to stick to everything else. Anything that you don't want to stick to, it wants to stick to. So there we go. And now, I kind of had it, I cleaned off the paper that I work on for the graph, and then I used the baking paper to smooth it out. And then here I try working with my tool to just create a tubular, like a coil texture, but it doesn't really quite work out because every time I flip the green stuff over or maneuver it around, it just flattens the other side. I didn't really know what I did wrong there, so I'm going to give it another shot in another video, and I'll show you guys what I end up doing. I'm going to look that up a little bit more. But anyways, we're just going to go back to what we had before, a little bit of tubing, and we're just going to work on painting to make this look a little bit better. My sculpting skills are still not up to snuff quite yet, but we're going to get there. So here we're just going to grab my tube that I just made, and I didn't want it to be perfect length. I want it to be a little too long, and I want it to kind of fold around. So I'm just going to go in here, grab all my little sculpting tools, and just see which one works the best. To make it smoothed out around the edges, I felt the scalpel kind of smooth dentist looking tool that had a smoother round surface at the end. Just made it easier to smooth out the green stuff and make it look like more like it was connected to that piece. So here we are. I'm just going to show you what I do there. And green stuff tends to want to relax and touch other surfaces and then stick to those surfaces. So as I'm going through, I'm just trying to peel it away, not let it get too stuck onto any surface I don't want it to, so that I can try to keep the look that I'm going for. Now, just repeating the same process that we just did, I'm going to grab some green stuff and I'm going to make it for the other side. And this one's going to go towards the backpack and lead into the cannon on his shoulder. So we're just going to do the same thing. You can grab that green stuff. Oop, I smushed it a little bit too hard, so just got to pick that up and lift it up off the paper and then just rotate it around. And here you go. Just kind of get this nice and smooth, and just make sure that whatever you're rolling this on is nice and clean, whether it's another piece of non-stick paper, which is probably a better idea than what I'm doing here. But I was just in the mode and I wanted to pick up speed, so I didn't really think about it, and it ended up working out. But later you'll see that you should not be rotating or using this green stuff on paper. It can stick to the paper and then cause a lot more problems. But here we go. I'm just going to stick one end to the end that I want to look like it's supplying the power. And then this side is just going to go up to the top, more towards where all the wires are already going into the cannon, just to create a menagerie of wires that look a little bit more like they're all put together and creating some weird little backpack of battery life. It's pretty cool. And there you have it. There's our first couple of tubes. Now we're just going to grab a little bit more green stuff and just work with that. Here we go. Just going to squish this around and trying to get it around into a nice little tube. And, just reminding you, this is my first time with green stuff in a while, and I'm going to put out some more advanced tutorials once I get into this more, and we're going to have some fun making coats and fur and whatnot. But for now, we're just going to do very basic tubing and a cape, just for all those beginners, myself included. Now we're preparing this side to create some little rope pieces. We have a bunch of ropes sticking all of our armor and our little bits together, surrounding our gargant, trying to make it look a little bit more of a homemade piece of armor. So what I did was I made this really, really thin, and then I'm going to grab a few pieces, cut them off, and then also make those really, really thin. And I'm going to use these pieces in order to create those little tiny bits of rope that are going to go around his legs. Here, we're just going to cut this into thirds. And just using that same little tool, we're going to pick it up, and we're going to put it where we want it to be, which is going to be right around this leg. So I would recommend getting a small little piece or tool that you can pick up these tiny little pieces and maneuver it around. Just get some practice picking things up like that and putting it where you need it to be and smoothing it out. These sculpting tools are really pretty cool. Probably a little unnecessary. You could probably use almost anything as a sculpting tool if you have the mind for it. But these are pretty cool. I'll put a link down below, and they do get the job done. I am sorry about the angle. I'm trying to get as much as I can with being able to see, but these are some tricky little ropes. So we're just connecting these ropes from one end to another, surrounding our whole gargant leg. And we're just going to do this to both sides. And it takes just a little bit of finessing and just smoothing out the green stuff around the other edges. But once you have it, it looks pretty good. And as you can see, we made a few other tubes. I didn't bore you with that. Just it's the same exact method. We're connecting it from the gun to his shoulder, from the handle of the chainsaws to the chainsaws itself, and just adding a little bit more to that. Grab some more green stuff that we have either already made or just makes a little bit more, and we're going to start filling in the cracks, mostly concentrating near the chainsaws and where the handles meet the parts that we built into it, and just trying to cover in any of these loose gaps that don't make this look like a solid piece. So I made it into like a little noodle that I wanted to wrap around into the crack, and then I'm just gonna push it in. Now, I did find out from another channel that oil would help this a lot, because as you can see, the green stuff sticks to my sculpting tool, and sticks to my hand, and sticks to everything else but what I'm trying to get it to stick to, which is the plastic, which is very annoying. But I found out if you use a little oil, that can come off, and it's a lot easier. I don't like the fact that I have to go get oil for this. is one part that I extremely don't like about green stuff. This part annoyed me. But, after you get that done, you finally fill the cracks. You can put them in there, jab them in, just try to fill it up as much as you can, and after being super annoyed that this thing doesn't stick and you need oil, you get it done, and there you go. And it looks pretty decent, and you don't want it to be too smooth because it is going to be kind of like he made it himself, so we don't have to worry about it being that smoothed out, plus it's on a piece of wood. So don't worry about that too much. You're not flattening it to a piece of metal, you're flattening it to the same surface it is. So I'm going to grab some more green stuff. I'm going to grab the rest of it, and this is going to be his leather cape. And on all the other pieces, I realized when I didn't cut this little piece out, it made a hard surface because it already cured the yellow and the blue together. And this is what I was talking about, where if you put on the paper, it can stick to it and ruin it. Don't do that. You should put it on this like non-stick surface like I just did, and this will help you a lot more. But after you get your pieces that you're trying to get, you're just going to squeeze them together, and just like we did earlier, you're just going to mush them all until they're green. And there you have it. So now you're going to just squeeze it out, and I tried doing like a pizza dough rollout method, and I did find out that does not work out very well with green stuff. Maybe not any of this stuff. But, you know, whatever you got to do to make it flatter. The flatter it is, the harder it is to sculpt, so most of the time people won't make it flatter. They'll just make a thicker cape and just use more green stuff. I did not know that at the time, and also I don't have a lot of green stuff, so I was trying to make do with what I had. And, you know, I still wanted to see what would happen, so thinning it out and just making a large drape of a tarp as a cape, it still worked out pretty well, but it is very difficult of a surface to try to flatten out. Now you see I had my my sharp razor roll around and I forgot to put the lid. Don't do that. Always have your razor covered and not in the way, otherwise you're gonna cut yourself, like I almost did. So here I'm just gonna knead the dough, or knead the green stuff. I'm gonna flatten it out. I'm using that big spatula from the tool and just using it to smooth it out, and it works really well actually. And it works really well to pick it up off of the surface too. So once you have it a certain size, and I had like a width I was kind of liking, I figured, let's stretch it with our fingers and just see how that worked. And honestly, this was probably the best method to making it larger and flatter, just using my fingers. And it made it this nice, just nice texture, nice rips, so you can make little tears easily. Just go slow, nice and slow, flatten it out a bit more, and keep working your way at it, and you'll make a cool looking cape. Yeah, I'm just going to flatten this out a little bit more and get it going, but yeah, it's looking pretty good. I'm just going to, I think I'm going to do a little bit of something different. I'm going to cut off little pieces of it just to make it look a little bit less like I flattened out a piece of putty. And just give it a few tears, and now using those free tears that I made from cutting it, I just pull on it a little bit just to give it tatters, and it works really well. And then I realize as I'm pulling on it, I'm making it a lot bigger and flatter, and it's looking really nice already. So all that flattening and pizza doughing and rolling it out, kind of maybe not so necessary, maybe a bit of that, and then do this, just to shorten up the time frame. But yeah, it works pretty well with just using your fingers. You can just pull it around and it should work pretty well. I did, you know, after this has been about 20 minutes after I had already mixed it, so maybe about after 20 minutes of curing, it's about the right texture. With green stuff, it is largely about patience and timing. The difference in time will change the amount of curing it has done, so you can sculpt it at different degrees. So depending on what time it is, you can sculpt better details, and that's something really good to know. So it seems like to be a really good green stuff sculptor, you really need good patience and a good knowledge of what the different mixtures bring you. But I did find a good mixture of green stuff and some other putty that looked really interesting. In another video I'm going to show it to you. It looks a lot easier to sculpt. It looks like it'll stay still. And when you want to make like a waving pattern of a cape, green stuff tends to just droop and relax, while this other stuff tends to actually stay where you want it. So that'll be a fun video. I'll post it later on, and that'll be fun. But for now, we're just going to work with green stuff. And here I'm just going to grab pieces of the cape and just find little areas to have it connect to. And later on, I do grab that little piece by his arm and I connect it not just from the hook, but all the way to the front badge that he has, the Stormcast shield badge around his chest armor, just to make it look more like he has a cape that he has connected to it, and it looks pretty awesome. So there you have it. There's our cape, and it's kind of just going around his backpack and bringing everything all in. And it's pretty fun to do. It's a fun process. I recommend getting into some green stuff and just not worrying about it too much. At first it seems a little bit tricky, but it's actually a lot of fun to deal with, except for the fact that it sticks to stuff. Get some oil. But otherwise, there's our Armored Gargant with some green stuff. Pretty fun. And the next episode we'll be covering how to paint it. Yourself, and I hope that we helped you learn anything new and brought anything to your attention that you may want to do later on in the future. Now, here's a sneak peek to the next episode. We'll be covering his skin tone and how I use an airbrush for that. But otherwise, I hope you had a great day, and I hope we helped you break your painter's block.